Welcome back for another OG Show Live. Mr. Randall, how you doing?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Reel Down.
Welcome back to another episode of Bass Fishing for News.
Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to, once again, the Bass Kayak and Beers.
Brother, this is the final cast.
Another segment of Chasing the Tide, your saltwater connection on the Paddle Fin.
Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of Feather and Fur. Your host, Brad.
Welcome back to the Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Crystal.
Hey, welcome back to Off the Water.
Happy Susie Q here with Adventures of Outdoor Woman podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Rusty Hook Kayak Fishing Podcast.
We're brought to you by Pelican, built tough for all situations. Go to pelican.com. Eastport Marina on the beautiful shores of Dale Hollow Lake. For all your lodging, kayaking, go to eastport.info. Yak Gadget for all your fine kayak fishing accessory needs. Go to yakgadget.com.
What's going? Oh, hello, everybody listening to MLF with me since the volume decided to turn back on. Sorry about that. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to The Reel Down. I'm your host, Jimmy Skinner. With me is Dan the Fishing Man Perry. What's up, brother?
What's up, man? What's going on? I got my starter of the Halloween decorations back behind me.
I like it. It's way more effort than we're doing. We don't do Halloween around here. Like Halloween's like my least favorite holiday. Same with my wife. So if you just did that, your house is 100% better than mine for the holiday already.
Well, we have a Halloween party every year. You're welcome to come if you want. It's just adults in costumes getting drunk.
I'd be there. I'd just be dressed as a podcast co-host.
Yeah, you're so far away. That's why you'll never. I've never invited you because you're like 2 hours away. You know?
I mean, it's honestly, and it's not. I guess just because it's Halloween related, I just usually dodge them anyway. Like if you were like, "Hey, the weekend after is a normal party," I'll be there. Like you take the Halloween crap away from it, I'm in.
Gotcha.
But yeah, man, what you been up to? Did you fish any? Got on the water?
Yeah, went out and wrecked them on Neely Henry, getting ready for the KFL this weekend. So we have our Southern Championship this week. It's Coosa Kingfishers, our team, against the Virginia Reapers. So the Southern Championship, whoever wins this meets the winner of the Indianapolis Knights and Massachusetts Maulers. I can't say that word. At Chickamauga here at the end of the month. So, yep.
Sweet. Yeah, you definitely. I saw the numbers you did. You got on them. I think they should be worried about coming down to. And Neely Henry's kind of hard to figure out too.
It is. I did not.
For somebody that's not from here, it's.
I did not even lean on them. That was just like, I was throwing one particular bait that it's like they had never seen it before. So we'll see.
You have to tell me what that bait is after the show.
Yeah.
So is it to tie into what we're going to get into? And just I'll let you talk about it. And, everybody knows normally if you've listened to this show, we're doing some tournament recap stuff and having winners on, but we're going to do something a little bit different this show. A little more interesting in my opinion, but what we got coming this show?
Yeah, we're just going to talk about the summer to fall transition, and just kind of the baits that you use, how you attack it, maybe what parts of the lake you're going to start at, just how, even if you can go out on the water and you can get down to a third of the places where you've cut out maybe the main lake or whatever, you've cut out a portion of the lake and a portion of the baits already. Maybe this will help you make the decisions on where to go fish a little bit easier during the transition, because it can be one of the most difficult times of the year. And depending on where you're at, we've got guys from up north, kind of in the middle, and then the south. So, I mean, we got people from all over. So they might be in different parts of that transition too. So, well, we'll go ahead and bring them on, though. First, we have Dwain Batey out of Texas. And we have Texas, right?
Arkansas.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, close.
Didn't mean to insult you. Just kidding, Texas. Take it easy. There he goes. Richie McMichael, Kansas, right?
Yep, correct.
There, Kansas, and Eric Polenz up on the Great Lakes, where Michigan, or I don't know, somewhere where they eat a lot of cheese, right?
Michigan, yeah.
Michigan, all right. There we go. Well, thank y'all for being on. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you having us.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
so
this is going to be a really good to get into the fall transition talk, just because we all are on different areas. So I've got the Tennessee River, Dan's got Coosa, and as we just said, we've got the other 3 areas. So it'll be really fun to break it down, because not only the baits and stuff, like what is the fall transition for certain areas? Like, are they actually, doing the traditional fall pattern? Like, I've got some information to kind of add to about like Pickwick, how it's different. So yeah, it'll be fun. So how you want to start it, Dano?
First, we'll let everybody introduce yourselves. Eric, we'll start with you, man. You've been on here before, right?
Yeah, I've been on here for
times.
a couple tourney recaps in the past. Speaking of Pickwick, I fished a KBF tournament down there, but that was the spring, so it's a little bit different than what it is now, it sounds like. But I'm from Michigan, and for me, when it comes to the fall, I do a lot more smallmouth fishing than anything else. Lake Erie, Lake St. Clair, Detroit River. So that's more so what I'm going to focus on with, my info today.
Just my bucket list places. You're just all those.
Oh, they can be really fun, and the fall can be really good, but it has its challenges also.
For sure. Richie, how about you, man?
Yep. From Kansas City. I live in Kansas, but I'm like 5 minutes from the Missouri border. So, I usually do a lot more fishing in Missouri, a lot better lakes in Missouri. So, I'm just be talking about some of my favorite fall baits and places that I'm familiar with, like Ozarks and Table Rock, and just places like that I really know really well and fish in the fall a lot. So,
and you qualified for the TOC, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations. And Eric, you were all pro for the KFL, and Dwayne, you've won an Angler of the Year this year and former national championship. You
Not
won
this
one,
year.
right? Oh,
I won one. I was a reigning champ last year. I got beat out this time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, Dwayne, tell everybody who you are, man, if they don't know.
Yeah, Dwain Batey. I'm from Arkansas. I fish a lot of the same stuff that Richie does. I'm just a little farther south, and like him, I'm about 5 minutes from Oklahoma, so I got a lot of time over there, and that's where I grew up as well. And I haven't fished a whole lot of big tournaments this year since COVID. I haven't been in that, but that's going to be coming back up next year. We're going to get back after it.
I believe you're working for Catch now, right?
Yeah, I'm the marketing director for Catch.
Well, congratulations, man.
Thanks. That's really awesome. I'm excited about that.
For sure. So I guess since I'm talking to you, go ahead and tell everybody maybe this time of the year, just kind of say where the fish are at right now and how you're going to start to attack the lake, I guess, if you don't mind.
Okay. We have a really odd fall. I don't know how common it is, but our fall, we don't really get the fall that you read about in the books where it's so good and everything. It is super tough right now. As soon as the thermocline breaks up, you've got fish from 60 feet all the way to 6 inches, and they're just spread out. And this really fits the way I fish. I love to cover water and throw moving baits, and that seems to be the deal this time of year a lot. And so it's just super tough here in the Ozarks when all this is going on.
Is there a certain part of the lake right now? Are you starting at the back and working out, or are you working out and and working back?
If I had to pick a part, I'd say the river right now. The rivers would be my go-to for, because you get a little moving water and things like that keeps it a little better than the main lake can be. But as long as I cover water, I'll fish any part of the lake. But if I had to pick one, I'd say the river right now.
Okay. Eric, how about you, man?
So for me, the fish right now are starting to kind of move back in a little bit shallower. Sometimes in the fall, you hear about people catching them in 6 inches of water or super shallow. And for me, on the big water, I don't really ever find them that shallow, but they start moving back into, kind of like the more mid-range, maybe, 10 to 15 foot as opposed to the deeper water, the really deep water. For me, the biggest thing, if I'm fishing the falls, I'm just looking for bait. If bait's not present in the area, I don't tend to do all that well. It seems like the bait really starts to group up, and then if you can find the bait, generally there's going to be fish around it. So that's always number one for me. In around here, whether it be Lake Erie or Lake St. Clair, or I do like to fish the rivers a lot, but it seems like the bait this time of year really kind of starts to push towards that current a lot. So current seems to be key. If you're fishing just like the main lake of it stuff, the two other things that I would look for is rock piles, hard bottom, or just the very greenest grass. Like a lot of the grass around here is kind of dying off. There's not much of it left. But if you find that real good green grass, there's bound to be some perch around or some other good bait fish that is going to be hiding in there. And if you find good piles of perch and whatnot, you'll find those too. And when I'm fishing, if I'm getting bit by perch, if I'm throwing a drop shot or a swim bait or whatever I am, and I'm getting those perch bites, I'm going to stick around for a while because it's a matter of time before you kind of run into the smallies. You might have to dial in a specific area where they're waiting to ambush them. But those are kind of the starting points that I'm going to look for on the big water for sure.
I think that green grass is a big tip for sure, because kind of like in the spring, you're looking for the first green grass. You find that, and in the fall, same thing. But, the last green grass, I guess.
And it translates over, like we ice fish up here too. So it translates over to that too. Like on first ice, whether it be bluegill on these inland lakes or whatever, if you can find grass that's still green underneath the ice, there's bound to be a whole lot of fish around there. So then, I'm thinking about this in the winter, and then it translates back over. Okay, well, late in the fall, if I can find that grass, there's got to be fish around also. So it's, even when you're ice fishing, you're kind of thinking forward to how that's going to impact your bass fishing the next year too.
Eric's already out there scouting for ice fishing. I like it. Well, we really need to do an ice fishing episode this winter. That's something well, Jimmy, you did it last year, right?
Yeah. It was freaking awesome. We didn't go for any like big species or anything. We just went up there to catch, buttloads of bluegill, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. We had like 18 inches of ice, and I mean, I just got sick of catching fish, and that's weird. Like, and they weren't even like little dink bluegills. I mean, these are like palm-sized or bigger gills. Like, it was good fish. Just one little magic tree.
It makes for a really good meal. And then on the flip side of this, I know it's kind of going down a weird tangent here, but I used a graph that I had. I bought an adapter to use this for ice fishing. I learned so much about just my regular sonar, chasing pods of bluegill around in 30 foot of water and going and chasing them and seeing what they look like, and the difference of return on the schools of fish, and whether that meant that they were coming in or they were moving. So it's kind of a cool deal. We don't get to fish year round like you guys get to do in the South, but you can still just go ice fish and have fun, catch a bunch of hand-sized bluegill, like he's saying, have a heck of a meal, but also, get dialed in for bass fishing when you're back on the water, when it's not frozen.
I would definitely say that's true. We were using a Vexilar, so if it came down to it and they were to put the ban on the fancy electronics, I could throw a Vexilar on the kayak, and I think I'd be okay, because I understand what all the blinky lights mean now. So,
Richie, how about you, man?
Yeah, well, like Dwayne was saying, man, it's just started. I think the fall here. It was 100 degrees 2 weeks ago through the day, and 80 degrees overnight. Now it's getting highs 80s, lows of 45 overnight. So the fish are really, I think they're still on their summer pattern here, but they're starting to scatter. The temperatures have dropped from the mid 80s to, like, I've been doing research on Pomme de Terre Lake where I'm fishing a tournament this weekend, and the water temperature is already down to 71 degrees. So it's dropped like 15 degrees over the last 2 weeks. So it makes it tough, and it makes those fish scatter out. But whenever if I'm pre-fishing for a tournament, I'm going to most always check the back of creek, especially in the fall. I'm going to try to find an area with 4 or 5 different creeks in it that I could run to and get to each other pretty quickly. Just to I don't even have to fish, just looking for the bait fish, looking for the area with the most moving water, if there is any moving water. And you can find the bait. If the bait fish are there in the backs of the creek, you can find them pretty quickly. And if they're not in the backs, you can go. I usually check secondary points, main lake points. But right now, with this tournament this weekend, I'm probably going to go way up the creek, just to get away from everybody. But if it was like I'm just going to go have fun, try out my new kayak, my links, and just try to get into places I normally couldn't get to. But normally right now, if I was trying to find those bigger fish, I wouldn't be on the main lake. I'd be up the creeks a little bit, but I'd be more closer to main lake, channel swing point, stuff like that. And I think that's where kind of a lot of the bigger fish are right now. But as soon as that temperature gets in the mid 60s, I believe those fish are going to start schooling up and get further in the back and back to the creeks. And that's like the last several years around in Missouri. If you don't have a whopper plopper in your hand, I remember last year's tournament, it was like you have the top 5 people in our tournament. It was a state championship last year, 2 years ago. Every person was throwing a whopper plopper all day. So that's where I start. I start with the whopper plopper and just burning as fast as I can to get reaction strikes, just to try to find those fish. But, once you find them in the back of the creeks or something, when you're back there, I'd like to throw a crankbait, like a little square bill, little evergreen 1.0. And if the bait fish are back there, those bigger fish are going to be on any type of cover. If there's a single piece of wood and there's bait fish in the area, you want to hit that just single piece of wood from every angle you can, not just 1 or 2 casts, but just multiple casts in there, because there's usually a fish in there. If the bait fish are back there, and the fish are probably going to be there. So that's what I look for mainly. If there's no bait, I'm not even going to bother fishing that area. So
is everybody plopper over Chapo?
Plopper all day long.
No.
People are saying no. Chapo.
No. I like the Chapo, and then I've got some that I custom paint, but the Chapo's been getting a lot of action for me lately.
Really?
I don't know if it's a lot of just everybody throwing ploppers for so long, but like normally, like last year, if you'd asked me, I would have said just the plopper. But this year it wasn't working. I started throwing Chapos in the same places, and it's been I lose a lot less fish on that bait. And I don't on my ploppers I change my hooks. On my Chapos I haven't, and I don't lose fish. So I don't know, but it's a fun bait.
Yeah, Eric, are you like the one Guggen revolver guy?
I don't throw as much topwater probably as I should, but when I do, I'm throwing a spook before I'm probably going to throw anything else. And that's kind of what I'm wondering. I'm hearing you guys talking. I'm thinking, I wonder where the spook fits in for you guys. Are you still throwing that too and mixing it in, or is it just straight up whopper plopper?
Oh no, in the fall I have a whopper plopper, a spook, and also like a small buzzbait, like a quarter-ounce buzzbait. I'll have all 3 tied on with me.
Dwayne's got them all. He's ready.
Yeah.
He's got them. That man loves some topwater, huh?
Like when I went out, I think it was last weekend. It was spook, buzzbait, Chapo, frog. Because the frog bite, in my opinion, the frog. I mean, everybody knows like Gunnersville frogs and late September, early October, but like anywhere out here on the river, I don't know. It's just it works this time of year. Open water, grassy, matty, but it's like you can usually get them to bite one of the 4. But I typically throw the spook in like bigger areas. I know that's kind of like probably not a really good description, but like if I'm doing that fall thing, I'm working at the mouth of the creek and working my way in. It's like I'll use the spook further out, and as I work in, that's when I start going for the, like the smaller Chapo or the buzzbait. I don't know why. It's just I feel like when you're out towards the main river, the main lake, there's just more water, so maybe that walking bait's calling them from a greater distance than it would be just burning that plopper or buzzbait back to you. But that's kind of how I do it.
A lot of times this time of year, I use the Norman speed clips. I do that with all my not my buzz baits, but my top water rod and my crankbait rod, and I'll keep like a popper, a chopo, and a spook. I'll keep all three in a pocket or up on the deck, and I'll just take that speed clip and just swap between the three. So that way I don't have to have multiple rods for top waters for
That's a good
those
idea.
at least.
Yeah.
It just lets me change between them because for me it's like I guess a chopo or a plopper would be like more covering water or down something. I would think a spook a little bit more open water, schooling fish, and then popper around cover for me at least.
Well, if I find a bunch of fish and I don't have to cover water to find them, I know they're there. I think that popper is a very, very underutilized bait, especially if it's the exact same size as those bait fish.
Yeah.
So.
That's a bait I have zero confidence in. Like, I don't know if it's a patience thing, but me and a popper we just don't get along.
I've never like everybody watches Greg Blanchard's stuff, but like he uses it to cover water or kind of like more open water. Like I'd use a spook. It's something I've never used it that way. For me, I'm just like trying to get at something and not move anywhere. Like I'm just really trying to piss something off, you know. Like I know I missed a fish, whether it's a follow up or what. I'm just trying to get that one fish. But yeah,
I like the popper. I like the bigger poppers so I can walk it as well, and then I'll pop it around some cover or whatever, and then walk it back. That's how I get around being impatient.
I would say, like, kind of for
That
me
makes
too, because
sense.
I'll use a chugging spook, which is basically like a 5-inch long popper.
Right.
So kind of like a blend. I guess I got confidence there. Just those little bitty ones, man. I got some of those like little bitty pop R's that you're supposed to throw on like spinning gear. I'll cast like 3 times, be like, nope, this ain't it. Like, it's gone. Put the fluke back on.
Yeah.
So what is everything y'all throwing pretty much this time of the year going to be shad imitators? Or are you? I see some people with a jig. Some people always have a jig, but I mean, is it mostly shad or bait fish imitators this time of year for y'all?
For me, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
For me personally, I generally want to start with a moving bait, crankbait, swim bait, that type of stuff. When the water starts to get to maybe below 50, blade bait, something that's moving. But another thing too, like these fish are in the Great Lakes system are eating gobies a lot, and gobies are just kind of little small fish, no swim bladder, so they stay really tight to the bottom. So a tube is always kind of a factor, which will imitate a craw, but it's also imitating the gobies. So and if not a tube, maybe like a Ned rig, because those gobies are real small. So I'll still fish the bottom, but it could be a craw, but it also could be more bait fish gobies that have to stay close to the bottom that, won't rise up more than maybe 6 inches a foot off the bottom. So bottom is always in play when you're fishing for smallmouth, but generally speaking, I'm going to start by moving something that looks like a bait fish that I'm trying to chase around and find in the first place.
Yeah, like I usually do shad imitation stuff for most of the morning anyway. Transition from top water over to like a little swim bait or crankbait. But I always have a jig tied on because, you just give your area rest. I usually like to go out to secondary points or something and throw a little finesse jig, and always have to have a jig tied on because it doesn't matter if those fish are eating shad or not. They're most likely going to be eating crawfish as well. They're trying to feed up for the winter. So a jig is definitely something, especially if you're not doing so well with all these moving baits and stuff. Having a little finesse jig or something like that tied on to hit the points, hit the structure is definitely a good idea to get actually a good kicker or two during a tournament. So I always try the crawfish. I always have a crawfish imitating bait on usually too. So.
All right. Well, you got my attention. What finesse jig do you use?
Well, especially in the fall, I use the Kitech jigs.
The little rubber tungsten one.
The tungsten ones. I use a lot of times a football jig, but I'll use that casting jig because it has kind of a pointed nose, and I'll use it as a little swim jig. And I've cast a lot of checks on that little jig over the last couple of years. So I don't know if it's like that tungsten head knocking on the rocks, or if it just makes a little bit different noise or whatever, or if it's the size of it. I keep my trailer simple. Since it's a small jig, I usually use a rage crawl, a baby rage crawl, or a rage menace. And it just depends. Like the rage crawl, if I want more of a tail action and it just fall faster, if I want to fall a little slower, and I'll use that rage menace because it'll keep it from digging into those rocks too with that rage menace, making it fall a little slower. But
that rage menace, that's not only a killer finesse jig, but a killer swim jig trailer too.
Yep, I use it on swim jigs all the time.
Until I went to X Zone, that was my deal, and I don't know how many fish I've caught with that trailer.
So yeah, I keep it simple. I don't carry tons of trailers, just rage crawls, rage menaces, stuff like just keep it simple so you don't have to carry a lot of stuff too. So and those things work.
Do you have a certain temperature whenever you go to something a little bit more, less action in the winter, or do you just stick with that all year?
More towards the warmer months, I like the rage crawl, the baby rage crawl, just because the bait falls a little faster, it has a little more action. I like it to fall a little slower with the water cooler, and I don't know, it's more subtle action in the colder water, I think. And when I'm fishing colder water, I'm usually fishing some type of rock or riprap, and having that. If you have that rage crawl and it's falling really fast, it'll get wedged in those rocks, and you'll lose a lot of them. So
I see a lot of people where they'll have they'll go these super simple trailers in the winter, and then they have like a rage crawl in the summer. I'm like, just cut off the flanges so they don't flap as much. You can have the same bait, just save some money, and same bait, cut off the flaps.
Yeah, when I'm watching a professional angler or something do it, they'll put out like a chunk crawl and just put it there. Yeah. I just don't have confidence throwing it like that. I don't know why, but that's why the rage menace. It's you could use it you can just flip it Texas rig and catch fish on it. So
yeah,
that's usually like my go-to. Like you were kind of using the finesse jig as like a backup. When, like you said, you're letting your spots rest and stuff. It's either a finesse jig or just a smaller Texas rig for me this time of year. Kind of doing the same thing, just something that falls a little slower, has a little less action. Depending on what your cover is, but I definitely I'm in the same boat with you.
I've been playing with different finesse jigs and looking at some online, about to make an order, so that's why I asked.
Dude, I would definitely give those Kitex a try. They've been really good for me. Those and just the Eakins jigs.
Eakins, all right.
The 5/16 and 7/16 Eakins jig, they've done pretty well for me. So,
Outcast Tackle, they have one where it's got not to get on this tangent, but they have a V weed guard, kind of like the hook and the V weed guards in the middle, which that kind of made sense to me. So, I don't know. I thought I'd give them a shot. I've never thrown an Outcast anything, but I don't know. Something different. Dwayne, how about you, man?
So even with the moving bait, I am not tied to shad patterns for the fall. And what I figured out, I think that makes this happen is everybody's throwing shad patterns, and we don't have grass here. So these fish see everything constantly, especially up shallow. And I think everybody just beats the bank with these shad baits, and you can come behind with a swim jig or something that's black and blue. And even a topwater, sometimes I'll throw black this time of year. Just because of that fishing pressure, I feel like a lot of times I can get bit fishing behind people when I'm throwing a different color that's not even shad related.
Is there any preference this time of year to rattle baits or baits without rattles where you're maybe sneaking up on them a little bit more? Either one?
Not necessarily, but like it's more about the mood of the fish than the watercolor for me. It's same thing with colors, like the bait colors, just in general. The more the fish are active, the more I'll go with the brighter colors, and the more the fish are in a negative mood, the more I'll go with the transparents and things. and that's regardless of water temperature or water color. But one of the things I've really been doing well the last few years in the fall, we don't have any grass, and we have tons of leaves that fall in the water. And one of the things that the whopper plopper is so popular, but there's a time where there's so many leaves in that shallow water that you can't even throw it. And I've been throwing just a toad top lure.
Yeah, the goat's
this is that new one. But actually, I caught some on this last weekend. But that with a trocar hook bent out just a little bit has been really good. But you can throw that up in those leaves that are floating, and it's just open water. Again, we don't have any grass, but that's just a way I get around those stupid leaves, because you can't throw a crankbait, you can't throw a top water. I mean, it just gets silly here for almost a month sometimes.
That's always been my argument about the damn whopper plopper, is like, I've had so many like spots and smallmouth blow that damn bait out of the water and not catch a hook, but I will catch every freaking leaf in the damn river, and I don't get it. Like, I'll catch my net, my pocket, everything, but you can't catch a fish when it freight trains it. Like, don't have that problem with the Chapo. Another reason I haven't gone back to the plopper.
And Gunnersville, it's all eelgrass on Gunnersville too.
Especially right now.
Yeah.
My last trip to Gunnersville was all frustration because I can't. I don't know how to. I know guys that go out there and fish the eelgrass mats and can whack them. I have no clue how to do that. It just frustrates me. Like, I have to go find hydrilla. Ugh. I don't even want to think about it right now. Ugh. It's so bad. Well,
here's an update on my kid. He was feeling sick. He went upstairs when my wife farted really loud and said he felt better. So
he's becoming a man.
Like father, like son, like father, like son, something like that.
So, talking about moving baits in the shad pattern stuff, and Dwayne kind of touched on it, throwing out other colors. I myself don't stick to like the whites and the all shad mimic. I'll throw, like a black swim jig with black trailers. So it's still like shad as far as moving, but I'm still throwing it in those bait areas. But I know that the argument's usually like you have to, match the hatch, match what they're eating. But then I look at it sometimes like, if you're throwing the same thing, there's so much of it already. Why are they going to bite yours? So I try to give them that something different, that bigger bait profile. Do any of y'all have that kind of look on it? You throw, like, even if you see the little shad, do you ever like throw like a 5-inch Kitech in there or something like that and kind of mess with it? Or like how do you go about it? And I think it's going to be different for everybody because everybody's, bodies of waters are different.
Well, like for me, like talking about different colors, like if I'm throwing a fluke or something, most people are going to throw white, but my favorite is green pumpkin magic. I'll throw that over the white any day. I just have much better luck on the green pumpkin. So
my go-to smoking shad. I love that one. It's black, it's silver. I feel like it does everything I need it to do in one color.
I usually start with green pumpkin, but then again, like, shad isn't really the deal up here like it is down south.
Right.
Perch pretty much going to be green. They have a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow, and then you got the bluegill that's always green. But even when I travel down south for what I do, not necessarily in the fall, but I generally start with green pumpkin, and I feel like it looks so natural and so fishy that most places that I go to, they'll eat green pumpkin if it's in front of their face. And I guess I hadn't really considered the aspect of, them seeing a bunch of white, so maybe they would react different. I guess my switch up from like a traditional like green pumpkin, like a bee height delight type deal where it has a little bit of chartreuse or a little bit of white, so it kind of is the best of both worlds. But I usually start with green pumpkin, and if I'm absolutely like just having a rough time, I might switch it up to something else to see if it makes a difference. But I always figured that if you're fishing around hungry fish, color isn't the most important thing. It definitely can make a big difference, but with all the other variables involved, that's generally not my number one concern. I try to keep that super simple. and worry about other things, whether it be profile, presentation, that type of deal.
Why, Richie? Why green pumpkin magic instead of just green pumpkin? I always see that color, but it's one I usually don't choose. Is it just for like a light out condition? Like bright
It's
conditions?
just confidence for me. I think I just always use that color. I'm not sure what that little gold flake or little flake does. Maybe it shows a flash that the regular green pumpkin black flake doesn't. But just I don't know technically why the fish like it, but that's basically the only that green pumpkin magic and white are the only two like colored flukes I even bring with me. So I don't. Who knows why it works, but better than anything else. But it works for me. So,
Dwayne, how about you, man?
Well, you ask about size. I personally feel like size of the bait is one of the most important things. And so, like, if I'm going to throw, say, a Chapo or whatever, if they're eating little bitty shad, I'm either going to throw one that's clear or at least one that's very ghost-like. So in that aspect, the color is actually matching the size of the bait versus the actual color of the bait. So, but yeah, it seems like.
What size are you throwing, Dwayne? Whopper poppers in the fall?
This year, they've been all about the Chapo 75. That has been my go-to deal. That little short, fat one. I don't like the 90 because it rolls in the whopper plopper.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Chapo. I actually have some, but I haven't thrown them.
That's my go-to size on Chapo, and they do not roll like the plopper does.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get a little roll, like if you get a you crazy cast, but most of the time it turns over just a little bit on its side and runs straight to you.
But that 75 has been really good to me this year. So once it got hot summertime, because basically we're still summer fishing, and I like to throw that thing when the sun's out, when nobody else is throwing topwater, and just cover miles of shoreline until you hit 5 good ones.
That's usually how I end up zeroing in a tournament. You get that one strike on topwater early morning. I'm like, all right, boys, the rest of the rods are going up. We're dying by topwater.
I'm putting the tether. I'm putting the tether tubes on them.
That's right.
I don't need those anymore.
Usually for me, the day where I'm going to fish it all day, I won't catch any in the morning. Like if I have a morning where I don't catch any on topwater, I'm like, oh, this is an all day topwater deal. Just completely counterintuitive, but
some of the best days I've had on topwater has been bright sunny days. So
yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think mostly because like fishing in the current's like my thing. I don't really think that the daylight seems to matter with that, but I don't think of days where I had a lights out topwater day and it was because it was overcast. Like most of the time, especially like some of the guys I fish with, like when we're gonna go do a float or something like that, like they don't want to go if it's not just bluebird skies. So I think there is a lot to that, depending on where you are. Oh, well, now I know what I'm throwing all weekend, damn it.
Right.
I'm trying to think, let's see. Do any of y'all get into doing like so like go to in the fall for me for shad stuff? Like we already talked about the fluke. Fluke's just always good down here on the Tennessee River. It doesn't really matter what time of year it is. But I really like throwing like swim jigs like we've talked about, but underspins are like I usually do damage on underspins the very beginning of spring, or go down to these little 3-inch and under Kitex on a smaller underspin right now, or even things like the Okashira heads with like a 2-inch little damn, I can't remember the name of those baits. Mega Bass makes them.
Spark Shad.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Any of y'all get into like getting into that kind of small profile? Because Eric, I would assume that just because like some of the trick I got with that was from some of the northern smallmouth guys. Do you get into that kind of stuff?
I usually start on the bigger side. When I'm throwing swim baits, and I love to throw a swim bait, particularly in cold water. I just think it's one of those baits that can work all year round. But I usually start around a 3.8 Kitech. That's usually like my jumping off point. But I do have some 3.3s, and on occasion I'll go a 2.8. But always in the back of my head, I'm thinking that, in this system, even though, they're smallmouth and you're thinking small stuff, there is a lot of big bait around. The perch can get up to 14 inches. Obviously, I don't think that they're feeding on those, but 3.8, like I say, that's kind of my jumping off point. But I don't necessarily think that these fish are afraid of them. I have a buddy that fishes up here, very, very good smallmouth angler. He starts at 5 inches when he fishes swim bait. He always tells me, you're throwing too small. But then another guy who's very good kayak angler up here on Lake St. Clair, he usually starts at a 3.3. But I usually start on a little bit bigger side, thinking that, particularly in the fall, they're probably going for, to eat as much as they can and to feed up as much as they can.
Yeah,
and
gorging.
And since there is bigger bait around, I think that that they'll still eat it. But if I'm just not getting bit and I feel like I should on a swim bait, I'll downsize, and sometimes it can make a big difference.
You talking about the bigger stuff, that's something that I'm always trying to find videos that are like pushed back in the deep parts of YouTube, like old videos of wherever I'm going fishing. And I found, and it turned out it wasn't an old video. It was from the same day I was out on the lake. And guys were going up in the tail races of Pickwick and throwing 10-inch shiner baits, like replica shiners. And they were throwing big, like bigger than your hand live. And they were throwing them in the tail race, and they were averaging 5-pound smallmouth. And I was like, that was just, an eye-opening, like, you don't think a smallmouth's going to try to eat a bait of that size just because it's smallmouth, But it's definitely like, that's the first time I've ever considered getting into the swim bait game as far as bigger stuff. But now it's like, okay, well, maybe I'm going about it wrong. Maybe I need to take the 5.5s or 4.8s out with me, Kitechs, and see what they do in those situations. But what about you, Richie? Anything?
Well, actually, this year I bought my first swim bait rod. I bought a couple swim baits. So I want to try to get into them. Like the Texas swim baits has some couple really good. I got I think the 6.5 inch. And Clutch has a swim bait that's like 8 inches. And I took them out this weekend and tried to throw them. I didn't catch anything on them, but it was trying to get used to figuring it out and stuff like that. But I'm a big smaller swim bait person. I always have like a little Kitech round head jig with like most of the time it's a 3.3 inch Kitech. And I always have it with me no matter where I'm fishing at. I always have it sitting in my tackle bin or something to tie on in case I need something to give me a bite. I also have the 4-inch mega bass. What do you call those? You just said it a minute ago. Spark shads. Yes, those. And this time of year, we haven't discussed anything about the A-rig yet.
I was getting to that one.
But yeah, I've the last several weeks I've been getting all my A-rigs fixed up, and I don't like the big swim baits on A-rigs. Like I like the smaller 2.8 to 3.3 max. And I just started getting into the A-rigs last year and just had a blast with them, man, catching 2 fish at a time. And I can't wait till this fall when it gets cooler and the bite gets better to start throwing them around.
I've been trying to figure out for the longest time, like if you have the Okashira / greenfish tackle shin spin, the one with the propeller deals, and then you have a regular swim bait, then you have like an underspin or a flashy swimmer. When the hell are you choosing which one to do what? Like they seem so close. I can't figure out, like, do I need all of them in my tackle box? Do I just need, a couple of them. Hey, anybody have anything for me on that?
I can. So I do the same thing. So I run both style Okashiras because they have them with and without. And then I've got some of the little I think it's the guppy heads that like Tactical Bassin uses. And then I throw, various sizes of underspins. I usually take a few of each because I've had days, especially when I first tried the Okashira heads. The one with the little flashy blade on it looks so cool. I was throwing it, nothing. And I only took 2 with me and snagged those 2 up and lost them and went to the same exact size without it. And I caught fish the rest of the day. So now I don't leave. Like I run the Plano Edge terminal box, and one of the long ones in it is underspins, the various styles of the guppy heads and the Okashira heads. And they always go because I haven't figured out like when one works more than the other. But if it's something I have to tell myself during the day, if I'm going to throw one of those, I need to remember that if one's not working, I need to try one of the others because it's worked before. It's just a simple switch. Same profile size and everything. It's just like little flash sometimes, a lot of flash sometimes, no flash at all sometimes. Anybody else got anything on that?
When somebody was talking earlier, they just mentioned basically the confidence part of the whole thing. And the other thing was traveling light. And always in the back of my head, like I try to use and kind of figure out what I want to do. And then I just kind of commit to that one thing. And sometimes you get bit, but I'm always afraid that I'm going to chase a bite and constantly try and find that one thing that's really going to get them today. And I'm going to spend so much time changing and trying to figure out which one that I'm not fishing confident. I'm not believing what I'm doing. So I'm with you in the fact that I haven't really found that one is any particularly better than the other. So I just kind of commit to the one that I like. I usually just use a little ball head jig and just stick with that. I haven't been convinced in any scenario that one was better than the other. So I just try to keep it as simple as I can for my own mental, that I'm not thinking about it on tournament day. Well, maybe I need to do this or this or this or this. Keep it simple and just kind of commit to what I'm doing that day.
Like for me, Jimmy, usually I would say, oh, well, I do like the Okashira because you can get it down pretty low pretty quick. Same with a swim bait. But like, if that's not working, then I'm just going to go do something else. I'm not going to try something a little bit different of that. I'm just going to go do something else altogether.
Right.
And maybe that's, maybe I'm leaving fish whenever I shouldn't be. Maybe that's,
but at the same time, maybe I'm trying too hard. But to clarify, so like sometimes it won't be like, so like if I'm fishing this spot and I'm throwing an Okashira and it's not working, I'm not gonna cut it off, tie on another one and keep going. I'll probably go to something else that I have confidence in, and when if you're fishing and you're cycling through setups, it would be like when I came back to that, I'd be like, okay, it's time to try that little bit different. It's only one time I think I've ever like cut one off and put the other one right on and went right to it. Because that was when I first got them, and it was like I wanted to learn how to use it. See how it worked, see how it drops, see how it swims, things like that. But Richie, just to touch on your swim bait thing, have you tried Huddlestons yet?
No, I have not. Nope, I have the.
Gotta get you some of them.
I got the 8-inch spark or the 6 and 8-inch spark shads. But Huddleston, huh? Okay, I'll give them a shot.
They're not bad. I think these are like. I think they're $30, maybe $50. I don't remember, but they're super stretchy, and like you can swim them because they got that big bulbous tail. But like this is like I like to drag them this time of year. Like go out even if it's shallow water and just slow reel them in. Sometimes you get like you were talking earlier about like targeting cover. Like sometimes I feel really stupid, and then I'll see that like, oh, there's that one cypress tree. I could probably pitch in there with that jig and get a fish, but I'm going to try to pitch in there with that Huddleston, and maybe there's a 10-pounder back there. But be prepared to take pain pills with you because it'll wear your shoulder out.
You just made a good point too. One of the things that I try to do in my switch up is really a lot of it's on the speed. Really, counting rocks and ticking every one on the bottom. Burning it in and trying to kind of hit, everywhere on the water column and try the different speeds. To me, sometimes that's the bigger difference. I notice more, differences in the results in that than what I would trying to make other changes. Speed is a big factor, I think.
Definitely. I'm probably getting super guilty of being kind of too fast. It's probably a good thing I don't have a boat, because I'd be one of those guys, kind of like which this used to be a joke about Dustin Connell. Dustin was always like trolling motor on 10 and just, busting down the bank. Now Dustin Connell's like the king of offshore fishing with live scope. And, that doesn't come into play anymore. But I definitely even when I finesse quickly. Like that's why me and a Ned rig do not have a good relationship. Like they're like, you just throw it out. Well, brother, that's not me. I can't. Like I gotta wiggle it and shake it and drag it and maybe 1 minute. Drop shot's probably the only thing I can throw, and that's something else I was gonna get to here in a second. Drop shot's probably the only thing that I can really finesse and just let it be. And it's usually because I cast it and then I put the rod in a rod holder and I pick up my phone,
take a bite of your sandwich,
and then you hear this and you're like, hey. Dwayne, you got anything to add into all this?
I'm not a big underspin guy, except in the spring. There's a time when they first move up, when they're in that 8-10 foot range, that I'll throw an underspin quite a bit. But in the fall, if I just see something that makes me think that's what's going to happen, I have them with me, but it's just not a big deal for me.
I understand. I've got some buddies that swear by a spinnerbait won't throw an underspin. And for me, I'm like, there's same
that's
thing.
Another one. Yeah. I'm trying to figure that one out too. Every year I go through all my tackle. I'm like, I'm taking this out. This I don't need. These overlap. I can throw this instead of this. That's another one. Underspin / spinnerbait. I can't figure that out either.
Man, for me, it's like 1 year I can whack them with an underspin, and then the next year I'll get out that old $1 Academy spinnerbait and I'll smack them with that instead. I don't know. When I take my unlimited, my tournament boat, my big water boat, I've got way too much gear in it. And I do you're talking about, Dan, when I'm setting up my creek boat, it's what can I fit in 13700? And that's when I start thinking you'd be underspin or spinnerbait. Well, the underspin's way less. We're going to go with the underspins. It's
See, I don't even fish. Those aren't even the same for me. If I'm throwing a spinnerbait, it's usually dirtier water, and I throw an underspin in clear water. So to me, those are completely different.
That used to be me, and then Drew Gregory got me on throwing finesse spinnerbaits in clear water, and it worked. And I was like, oh. And then Jody Queen got me. Gave us information on throwing chatterbaits in crystal clear water and current.
I do that one. I do that one for sure.
There's so many options.
There's on Table Rock Lake, Aaron Martin had dominated some tournaments on spinnerbaits, just fishing spinnerbaits in that crystal clear water. So,
yeah. Well, let me clarify. I'll throw a spinnerbait in either, but I only throw the underspin in clear water.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The underspin, it's just universal for me. It's just, I don't know. My head's it's the same but different, which makes zero sense.
One of my best tournaments I ever had on an underspin was in dirty water. So, I mean, it's all relative.
So one thing I wanted to touch on, because Richie brought it up, is the A-rig. Normally it's a wintertime spring deal for me. I have hardly left home without one this year, and I've caught fish all year on it. I was throwing them in the dead heat of the summer on schooled up fish and catching them with, like you were saying, you like to keep the smaller ones. I like to throw, I'll throw all 3/8, but my center chaser will be a 5, and usually a different color. Just don't know. I have a buddy that throws all the same color, all the same size, has no issues. But let's talk about that, and I want to know what your A-rig of choice is. The one that I'm going to next year because I've seen it do so good is the Hog Farmer Harvester rig. Probably I don't know if it's the flex rig, but it's for anybody listening, go check that one out. It is a wicked looking umbrella rig. Looks like you would throw it off the back of a tuna boat. Like wicked looking.
Double?
Yeah,
is that the double?
It's got five teasers and 5 hooks or head. It's nuts. Like
if it's legal where you live.
Yeah, because I mean, different. It's 3 hooks, 5 hooks, but you can have as many teasers. You just have to have your hooks to the right spec. But whoever wants to start with that, even if it's a no, tell me why you don't consider it.
Well, one of my favorite A rigs is Big Daddy A rigs they're out of Dayton, Tennessee. It's a heavy wire, so if I catch more than one fish, I just boat flip it. And it's just kind of for a heavy wire, and I get the camouflage ones when I put it in the water, I can't see those wires, even if I'm in clear water. So, and it's just a basic 5 wire with 5 blades, and it just holds up. Just holds up to me. I can boat flip fish. It's just been one of my favorite ones. I have a Yum Dinger, stuff like that. But those Big Daddy A rigs are my favorite right now. Anyway,
what are you line wise? What are you throwing it on?
I throw most things on fluorocarbon, but with this, I'm going to be throwing at least 17 to 20 pound fluorocarbon. You can throw it on braid. I probably should do that, but
that's what you say boat flipping. I throw mine on like 50 pound, an expensive thin 50 pound braid. That way I just don't have to, especially once I get into these more expensive A rigs. I don't want to, I've taken the umbrellas and, I never retie, and I've sent that cast and that thing just snap right off, and you just, watch $20 worth of Kitex fly off in the sunset. Yeah, you add a $50 umbrella rig to that, and I'm going to get it.
Yeah, G-Funk Baits makes a really good A rig too.
Yeah,
I've heard that.
Yeah, my buddy Chuck, that's his. He swears by them.
My buddy sent me a video of him. Every single cast, he's catching 2 or 3 fish on one of those. So I was like, yeah, I better go pick a couple up, and especially for Missouri, they have a perfect one that comes. I don't think those. I think those come with the O-rings on it or the swivels. I don't think they come with the snaps, and I prefer those over the snaps. So
I haven't done one with that. It's always been the snaps, because like up until this point, I didn't have confidence in it, and I only threw cheap ones. And now that I'm like really confident in it, it's like, all right, time to step the game up a little bit. I still only ordered one of them though, so.
But like you're saying, hog farm. I know people that just strictly throw hog farmers, and they do really well on those.
I know a lot of the big fish that I saw caught out in Texas this year. The hog farmer harvester rig was the A rig they were throwing, and a lot of it's going to be like what jig heads are on it, what bait are you throwing behind it. It's just I've heard that the flex rig on a big fish it'll just wreck it, but I've heard that the standard harvester rigs are just hard to beat when it comes to like wire strength and, like you said, how it's translucent when it runs. And so, but we'll see. Anybody else in the A rig game?
I keep one in the tackle box, but I usually I don't pull it out. Like it would have to be a certain situation for me to pull one out, but I always have one with me and I can make one up, but I don't ever have one tied on. I don't go out with it tied on. I'll say that.
What's crazy is like I think it was like 101 degrees that day or something like that, and we were out on a lake in a tournament, and I was chasing the schools of fish and trying to do different stuff, and I was like, man, this is exactly what they look like on the graph in the spring when I was doing it. And I happened to have that rod with me, so I tied it on, and my buddy was like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, we're gonna see. And like first cast, I caught like a 3-pounder, and I was like, oh, hold up. And then I proceeded just running around that day, just busting them off the schools. And now it's like sometimes when we go out to bigger water, even if it's somewhere I don't ever throw one, if I don't have it, I'm like, I should have. But you pay for it, especially like I'm getting older, man. My shoulders are wrecked. Like if I run an A rig for a day, that next day or 3 is like ibuprofen and ice packs. It's rough.
Yeah, that's why I don't throw big swim baits anymore.
Yeah.
See, I know a lot of people throw those on big 7-8 rods. I got it like a 7.2. I wanted to keep it smaller, easier to, I guess, lighter, easier to cast. So
The only reason I throw mine on a 7.9 is just for the distance. Like I can really get, which kind of blew my mind because it's more of like a lob than it is. I mean, if you're doing like a regular cast, you are going to destroy your shoulder and your gear. But yeah, I've thought about trying because they have some of the more finessey A rigs too, and I've thought about trying to like downsize it and then throw it on like a 7.2 or 7.3 and see what that does.
Yeah, see, I try to keep mine as light as possible, like with an 1/8 ounce weight each on each of them. I know a lot of people like to throw heavier, but I like to keep mine as light as I possibly can get.
I've tried the three bait A rigs, or I think they're 3-bait. That's definitely the more finesse ones. I've never done any good with them.
A buddy of mine throws the one that I think Live Target makes. That's the mini A rig with 3 hooks, and he can tear up spotted bass with it. But I don't know if it ever hold any count with like good largemouth. And you said 1/8 ounce. I throw 3/16 ounce heads. I just use the originals. They're called the original Alabama rig. Like they're the original jig heads that the A rigs used to come with. And I tried throwing all sorts of different stuff, squadron heads and round heads, and I never felt that it looked like it ran correctly. So especially because I found those on a sale around town. They were like 50 cents a pack. So I bought a lot of them.
I don't throw one a whole lot, but the thing I've been doing lately when I do, I've been rigging it with like an extra wide gap. There's a couple of brands that have almost like a wobble head type, but it's made for an A rig and it's got an extra wide gap and you rig it weedless. And I've just been throwing it up in all kinds of stuff and had some pretty good success with that early this spring.
I would definitely need to try that because I'm notorious for letting mine top brush and treetops. And it's like, especially you'll find that, you'll see them on the graph and be like, oh, ho, ho, and then never fails first cast. I stick it in the top of that tree and I got to go paddle across it and shake the tree out of the ground.
A lot more and more people are throwing it weedless so they can throw it in trees and they don't lose their $50 A rigs as much. So
I use the Fish Head Swim, the Greg Vincent V-Lock swim bait hooks, and they're soft enough to where you can flex out the hook. I mean,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it a couple times before you can't use it anymore. But if you get snagged up, you can get it. You can toss it out of there.
Yeah, those hooks right there are heavy wire. When it snags up, you're not getting it back. You hope you get that snap ring to split, which they're like 80-pound snap rings. So good luck.
Yeah. When I'm doing that, I'm trying to throw it in stuff just specifically to see if I can find fish that have never seen an A rig.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, it's been an hour. We don't want to hold y'all up. It's getting late.
Eric, did we get to you on the A-rig real quick? Not to cut you off.
You didn't, but I really don't have a whole lot to add. I know that, you can really get into good smallies when they're grouped up in them, but I haven't really given it much of a shot. I've thrown a little bit down south, but just never really did enough on it to really have much of an opinion one way or another. But I enjoyed soaking that in. I'm going to try it again. I'm listening to you guys talk about it. I'm thinking I could probably try that here in the next week or so.
Man, when the bite's on, it's just fun and like catching multiple fish on it. Like it's my favorite thing to do if you're just like out just goofing off is like if you're getting around spotted bass. That's like the one that when you find them, when you'll reel it in, you'll feel that first bump and you set the hook and then you'll be reeling it in and then boom, it gets heavier. Boom, it gets heavier again. And it's just, you're just stacking fish on hooks and they're just still coming. I've done a 3. I've never done anything more than that, but I've heard of guys having them choke all 5 hooks.
And we're 3 hooks up here,
right?
Which is a little bit different. I know you guys can use 5 down there, at least in Alabama.
There's no limits here.
Yeah, we're 3.
No limits.
We're 3 in Missouri and Kansas. So
yeah, I thought we were 5, and I was proven wrong because one of our guys down here that's really good with A-rig was throwing them with 7 hooks, and everybody was complaining because he caught a limit in like 2 casts. And I was like, it was me and him got away from everybody, and I was like, man, I think they're right, dude. You're only supposed to throw 5. He's got it saved on his phone. Was like, here, you can read that. And I was like, okay, let's go. I could have had some more hooks on mine.
7 hooks seems chaotic. Like you're unhooking fish and you have all these other hooks bouncing around. That's crazy. I'd love to get into a bite, but I haven't yet. So
guarantee I'd hook myself with 7 hooks.
Oh, I can say I stab myself every day that I'm using a rig. It never fails because you'll get the fish in, and I'll be grabbing one, and he'll shake, and then boom, you got a 3-aught in your arm or 4-aught or whatever those are. It sucks, but it's so worth it.
Anybody caught 4 before at the same time?
I've caught 2. That's it.
I caught 3 small ones, so it was kind of like one fish.
I had 4 coming in one time. I could see all 4 fish, but by the time I got them in the boat, I only had 3.
Was it the 3 best ones or the?
They were all nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had. It was a crazy. It was back when it first started. It was a crazy night. I had 5 for like 19.5 pounds. It was just stupid.
I remember. I've told the story before. I remember when the A-rig came out. I bought one, and this is back when I didn't know shit about fishing, and it was the first trip I took in my boat when I had a bass boat, and I tied it on like a medium heavy. It was the umbrella, and threw all my baits on there and looked at my buddy. So I just want to know what it's like to catch one on it. You know, you chuck it out there, it about breaks the rod in half because it's just way too much for the rod. And like 3 cranks in, doom, doom, doom. They're just smacking at it because they've never seen it before. And I was hooked then, and then I kind of just, never could get confidence with it, and I stopped throwing it.
That's me. I fished it when it first came out for 2 or 3 years, pretty good, and then just I bet I haven't thrown one. Well, there's a small lake close to my house in the wintertime that I use side imaging, and I can see the fish out there and cast to them almost like live target or whatever, but it's not.
Yeah.
But that's just like for fun. It's a shallow lake, so I can't recreate it in tournament situation.
Right.
What's the number one tell that today's an A-rig day? I need to be throwing one. What's the number one sign that you know that that's going to be the juice?
For me, it's when you're finding the tighter group schools. Like this year was the first year I'd really seen it. It was bigger schools on the graph, like tightly together, whether they were actively feeding or relating to bait, set up. But I was able to do it, just throw it through those schools when they weren't chasing bait, just sitting. I mean, I think the deepest I did it was, sitting in, I think I was sitting in 30 foot of water, and they were like at 25, and they weren't actively feeding, and there were no bait profiles on the graph. And I was able to, bomb past them. I just let the rig go to the bottom. When I felt it get in the bottom, I picked it up, basically just one rip up, and then I started reeling it through them, and that worked. I mean, it's one of those to be continued. Ask me this question next year when I've had time to try to do that again. Because this time of year when you're throwing it, I don't even care if I see them on graph. There's fish here somewhere, and they're in their fall feeding frenzy, or supposedly. So you're just throwing it trying to have something that they want, but not really school targeting. But anybody else? Go ahead.
If you have a ball of bait and the bait itself is not active, they're just kind of there, and you whip one of those through there, does the bait start to react to that
sometimes
through?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if that could get the bait fired up and get the fish fired up, even regardless if you catch them on an A-rig, but just kind of get things moving.
So something I had happen this year during that tournament was throwing it. It wasn't that deep. It was 12 feet. It came through bait, and the bait pushed up to the surface, and we're popping on the surface, and the fish went up with them. So it was it went from them being on a deeper bite to they were at the top going crazy. So then you're oh, put the A-rig down, get your spook, get your top water, get a frog, whatever. But I don't know. There's a lot of it for me is like I haven't done it enough to have all that fact yet, but a lot of theories. I definitely think it does.
Are you using forward-facing sonar?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm afraid to get it now because I'm like, I've seen all these guys in Texas this year staring at their screen throwing A-rigs all day. I'll do it.
The description of what you're doing sounds like you were. That's why I was asking.
I have really, my Garmin has helped me really, really dial in like side imaging and my like being able to use my side scan and my down scan to really pinpoint where something is.
Nice.
And, you know, like see the pod, have a general idea of the area that it's in of the bait, you know, being able to show, okay, they're 20 feet off this side of the boat, throw past them. And then like, you know, for me, that was what worked was I obviously swam through them because they came to the top freaking out. So like something got them going, whether it was fish coming after the rig or the rig running through the bait. I definitely would love to do it on forward facing sonar to watch it to answer even that next question. But again, as much as I want one, I think that all the progress I'm making with fishing will go downhill very quickly.
You know, I bought one. I have it set up, everything. I put it on. I took it out once, then I took it off. Haven't put it back on.
That was one of my buddies, Tennessee Hammer, Garrett Johnson. Garrett whacks him without it, and then he'll put it on his boat, and that's the days he struggles.
It's not like I didn't like it or, you know, I don't have enough experience with it, but it just I like to keep things simple, and it's just so much more stuff on your kayak to get heavier. It's in my way, kind of. So that's it's basically just making my kayak heavier and getting in the way is the main reason why I took it off. But I know a lot of people that have success using it, especially in early spring and late fall. It's definitely a good tool to learn how to use. But
I tell myself that the only reason I want it is so that I can, you know, like cut out water, you know, come into an area, be like, there is no reason to fish here, obviously, because I don't see them. But I know that I'll sit on them and just like, ooh, because like for me, I'm like, that's how I'm going to learn how to offshore fish. I'm going to go sit out in the middle of the lake and put forward scan on them and act like I'm Brandon Polenz, which probably won't work.
Like a lot of guys I know, early spring, early part of the year, February, March, they killed it. Then after that, they started struggling a little bit. So it's, you know,
because it's so much about that fish wanting to bite anyway. And I think like just especially what you're saying, like in the spring, I feel like they're more likely to bite than, you know, the dead nuts heat of the summer. Unless you're some of these pros, man, some of the elites and stuff, they figure it out. I don't understand it, but
I'd like to get a 360. Like to me, the spatial recognition, you know, it just makes sense looking at it more. I thought about maybe doing something off the back of the kayak, kind of like where it just hinges up and down, where I could pull it out of the water with a leash or cord. Yeah, like you pull up with a motor where you put a magnet back there and it just sits, it locks into place, and you can pull it up kind of like a motor. I thought about doing something like maybe doing that over the winter because I like the 360.
For me, forward facing sonar, I mean, up here it can really be the deal, particularly on Lake St. Clair. Like when that came out, it kind of changed the game. And at this point, particularly in the big boat tournaments, like if you don't have one, it's almost hard to compete. There's not enough kayak guys yet to where it's really like putting you at a huge disadvantage not to have one. But I've always wondered, like, and I've asked the guys that have them, like, does this take away from the experience of fishing? You know, I just have the regular side scan and the 2D that I look at a lot now, but I feel like I'm already looking at my screen a lot. And it's like, when I'm going fishing, how much more time do I really want to dedicate looking at the screen as opposed to just like the experience that you're in on the water? I don't know. I could definitely see the benefits, even largemouth fishing, like Jimmy's saying, eliminating water, being able to make targeted casts to isolated grass patches versus, you know, trying to find them by casting and then staying on them with your waypoints and stuff. I mean, I can definitely see the benefits, but I just wonder how it affects the experience itself of being on the water, take it into nature, and just the joy of being outdoors, which It's
Yeah.
why I like to do it for the most part. So that's kind of where I'm halfway.
We just all gotta, keep our heads in it. John Cox does not use forward-facing sonar, and John Cox is still a god in the pro world. But the day he gets that, if I don't have it yet, if he ever like shows up at a tournament circuit with live scope on the front of his aluminum boat, I'll be like, damn it, all right. Like, guess I gotta try it.
Just ban them, and we don't have to worry about it.
Do what?
I like that
Bantams?
idea.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I'm not gonna lie. I want one. We've talked about it. If they banned them tomorrow, I'd be cool with it. Be like, great. It's just one less thing. Less
Save
money.
me some money. Yeah, exactly.
It's like using your flasher, like we talked about earlier. It's like a Vexlar. It's just a little bit more advanced.
I would love to like host a tournament up there in the northern, because God knows those guys have XLRs, but it'd be fun to have like a kayak tournament, and that's all you could take with you electronics wise.
Take a little flasher with you.
Take a flasher with you and drop her off the side. That's all you can use. That'd be freaking funny.
I love it.
All right. Well, before we let you.
Else?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Anything else anybody wants to put in on fall before we let her go?
I would say for me, when it comes to fall fishing, when I'm going, I know that it's kind of a feast or famine type of deal. You can have some really, really good days. For me, it's just about covering water, finding bait, high percentage areas. And I mean, if they're not there, they're not there. For me, I don't feel like, at least up here, you really have to trick them too much. If they're there, they're going to eat. They're ready to go. So just cover water and find them. And you might fish 7 hours and only catch them for one, but that 1 hour can be really, really good.
Anybody else?
Tiny crankbaits.
Tiny crankbaits.
Little bitty one. Only time of year I throw the little bitty time, like smaller than a 1.5 is the 1.0. But that has saved me in the fall so many times when it's super tough.
Something else I need to tie on, I guess.
Yeah, something I don't even own.
You don't own tiny crankbaits?
Well, like a Fat John 60s, but I don't, Lil John MD. I throw all Lil Johns, Lil John, the whole series, but
can't add money.
That's it. Well, no, I mean, I don't have a lot of them. I sharpen the hooks and touch them up with paint. Yeah, I'm pretty cheap, but.
All right, Richie, anything else on fall?
Yeah, find the bait fish. Bait fish want the same thing bass do. They want kind of moving water. They want the most oxygen they can have. So if there's those bait fish there, the bass are going to be there. So,
heck yeah.
There we go. Well, we want to give everybody a chance before we let you go to shout out any sponsors or anybody that makes fishing easier for you. Eric, we'll start with you, man.
I'm not a sponsor guy, and that's something that's never really mattered too much to me. I just like to do it. I like to go out, have fun, and just enjoy the experiences. You mentioned earlier I fished the KFL, so the Motor City Ambassadors, we'll give them a shout out. And
yeah,
we have a lot of fun. We had a pretty good year, and it was. But what makes the KFL great is just the camaraderie, the brotherhood. Going out there, mixing it up with some guys, having fun, going out to dinner, doing that whole deal. And but besides that, just my family, and I got a lot of fishing buddies. That's what's cool about the kayak community or the fishing community in general, is just yucking it up, talking fishing, hanging out with guys that are like-minded, that'll support you. Listen to hours of podcasts just to listen to you talking fishing like that. You appreciate those people, and without that support, it wouldn't be nearly as fun.
There you go, Richie.
I'm the same as Eric. I'm not a big pro staff sponsor person. Never have been.
Holler at Kitech, man. You throw all that Kitech stuff.
But no, I'm with Kistler, but I'm on the Kistler team. I love the Kistler rods, so they always coming out with new stuff. They just come out with a new line, the Kistler Chromiums, which are pretty awesome. Rods are like 3.5 ounces, and that's kind of about it. I just like to fish. I like to stay behind the scenes mostly. It's probably most of you guys know, and I just like winning fishing tournaments, man. That's
yes, sir.
The sponsorship.
Kayak and Bud Light. You got that sign in the back.
Oh yeah.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a Bud Light sign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to steal that. I like that a lot. I just like fishing. I like cashing checks. I like holding up trophies at the end
You know,
of the day. That's
I
good. like
just
it.
don't. I don't really don't have the social media presence as a lot of people do. I'd like to, get on, give them recap stuff like that. Say, hey, this is kind of what I like to do, but I don't know. I probably could have been on have a lot of different sponsors, but I just like to fish.
It's working out for you, man. Keep it up.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
And Dwayne, how about you? Catch.
Well, catch, of course. We got some new things coming out besides bump boards. We're making
Yeah.
some We're making
The
some
Hobie
parts.
stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to be further than that soon, but yeah, we're going to have some cool stuff coming out. Z Pro Lithium, Eagle Claw Trail Car. Got quite a few others. I'm gonna miss some, so we'll just stop with the big three there.
They know who they are.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great rest of the season and be safe and hopefully we'll have you on again before too long.
Cool. Thanks for having us on, man.
Thanks.
No problem.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
us.
guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
All right.
Got me
Any
ready to go
tournaments?
fishing. We got a whopping 2.
Two.
So,
All right.
2. Everybody hang on. First up, we had the 6th annual Ike, what do they call it? The Ike Foundation Tournament.
Bailey spanked everybody.
Yes, he did. It was on Lake Nakamixon. There were 90
You sure?
anglers. No, I'm not sure, but we're going to go with it.
I saw that name and I was like, what is how do you pronounce that?
We're going to go with Nakamixon. I probably
like
butchered it. But 90 anglers. It was a 5-fish tournament. Like you said, Bailey Egbert smacked everybody and caught 93 inches. Second place was Adam Coleman. He had 83 inches. So there's let alone a 10-inch gap, first to second. And third place was Mark Marini with 70.5. There were only 70 fish caught with 90 anglers in the tournament, and only first and second had limits. So it was tough for most. Good job, Bailey. Hopefully there were no egg sinkers involved.
I guarantee you there were none.
No, Bailey is as stand-up as they get.
Oh, yeah. Well, you'd have to set them on top, try to squish out the fish.
Yeah. Oh, everybody that's listening to this, I'm sure if you're in the fishing world, you know what we're talking about. It has been freaking everywhere all week. It's not even worth me talking about. So, but the last tournament that went on was the Kayak Fishing Utah State Championship. It was a 2-day tournament with 2 different locations. Day 1 was on Sand Hollow State Park. Day 2 is the top 50%. Went to Quail Creek State Park. The bottom 50% stayed on Sand Hollow. 33 anglers, 5 fish limit per day. First place, Wade Lish with 153 3/4. Second place, Chris Heap with 153 1/4. Third place, Mark McEwen with 152 1/2. And that is it. So we appreciate it. A little bit different show. I enjoyed it. I love tournaments, but it is very refreshing to talk about something else. Those guys were asking right before you got on, Dan, if do we account any of our fishing success and our growth to from the podcast directly? And I was like, absolutely. For me, we get so much juice on this show.
Look, y'all think we're doing this for your benefit to listen to this?
Wrong-o.
No, we have people on this show so we can get all the information we can from them.
Oh, you best believe if we had it our way, we would have another show or replace this show, and we would just be reaching out to anybody that was good at any particular thing that we wanted to learn.
We had some people
information overload.
That's how I found out about the Okashira, and then I caught a 10-pounder on it. It's I don't even know how many baits and everything else or techniques I've gotten from people on here, because sometimes they really, really give up something let's say once every 3 shows, there'll be some super juice. I mean, absolutely the nuts. Some information. One time it was a bait ball. If you see a bait, it's just one example. If you see a bait ball of fish, there's no fish around it. Keep moving, because if there were any fish around the bait ball, if they were active, at least, the bait ball wouldn't be so condensed. It wouldn't be so perfect on your graph. So if you see one like that, don't go fish that one. Move on to the next one because, you want one that's broken up.
Since that show, I'll run across my graph and be like, nope, looks too good. Gonna keep rolling. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's all these little things, and I promise if you listen to a show enough, you will get it.
An example would be of a recent one. I'm telling you, go back and listen to the one we did with the North Alabama kayak angler guys. Listen to some of the juice those guys dropped about the frog. I changed my setup after that show. Tried the lighter line, tried the little bit different cuts on the frogs and the heavy stuff, and I mean, he was 100% spot on. That thin line cutting through that stuff as it came through, still hooking up the bite, just as strong, not breaking the line, the cutting the legs like he mentioned. I got that crazy walk out of him. Like, I've always been able to make one walk, but like he was saying, I can make it almost cut backwards and just continue to stay in one spot. But yeah, no, we do this for our benefit for sure.
Yeah,
we love y'all, and we appreciate all of our listeners. We hope you benefit from it too. But I mean, I suck at fishing, and I'm here to get as much of it as I can.
Dude, I don't even know how much information I've got. It's crazy.
I need to start like bookmarking the really good ones. That's not in my head. I always think, well, I'll just go back and listen to it later.
Yeah.
You don't think about like there's more segments than just ours. So you go a week, you're 10 episodes back immediately. Like,
doing this for a few years now, I should have kept notes for every.
Man, I'm surprised you don't have a spreadsheet of it.
I know. Well, I hear you.
That can be your off-season thing. You can make a to listen list or like star notes to the best episodes.
I'm already working on a spreadsheet for baits to keep in my tackle box. I really I've started on it. I'm slowly working on it.
I'm pretty dialed in finally. Like,
I'm a nerd.
I feel like I finally started hitting that narrow down where it's like now I throw like 3 colors. Now I don't. I mean, I'll always try new baits, but it's not like I'm looking for replacements anymore. It's like I know what I have confidence in. Damn. So, well, that was a good show, and thanks everybody for staying with us. This one went a little longer, but it was a great show. I mean, everything that was talked about today, especially with the variety of places we were talking about, goes to where you're fishing. So maybe not you Canadian folks. We should have had a Canadian on. I don't know if they ever get out of winter pattern though, so it probably wouldn't have mattered. But yeah, we'll be back next week. I didn't do my homework. I don't know if there's any big tournaments coming up because I couldn't tell you when
Pickwick.
Oh yeah, Pickwick is next week.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll try to get those guys on. Hopefully they can tell me what I don't know about Pickwick. So
2-day tournament too. So
yeah, 2 days. It's been rough, but the weather's finally holding out consistent. But I know there's like a big shock with a lot of it. It cooled off so quick. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes because I've been keeping up with the BFLs and stuff out there, and it's been tough. So
I hope it's good on everybody coming down here.
Yeah, somebody's going to get on them, and I'm sure a few people will. I think right now, I think it's going to be a struggle. You know. But we'll see.
I think for at least half the field, it's going to be tough.
Rough.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate for people to come down TVA and for it to suck. But they're just like a couple of weeks too early.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and like the tournament was only a week different from last year. And last year when me and you fished it was like 100 degrees.
Yeah.
And like Saturday, the high is 68. Like.
They can only push it back so far because of TOC. I mean, it just is what it is. But
right,
a couple weeks later, and on Pickwick, and really be firing all cylinders.
Well, maybe everybody will get a second chance because there might be a Bassmaster Alabama winter tournament on Pickwick very soon after this one. So,
somebody doing it? Okay, yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, haven't announced it yet, but that's the plan.
Cool.
I have until January 31st, so I figure we'll get her rolling.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and qualify for the Classic.
There you go.
I'll try at least. Try.
Well, all right. Well, we appreciate it, everybody. We're going to get out of here. We'll see y'all next week with a little bit of tourney recap. Thanks again. Peace.
Later.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode here on Paddle and Fin. Be sure to drop a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, or smash that subscribe button on any platform you're listening in on. Be sure to check us out on Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. Make sure you sign up for the Fantasy Kayak Fishing League at paddleandfin.com/fantasy. You could support this show through Patreon, patreon.com/paddleandfin. Don't forget to check out the website, paddleandfin.com. Catch us on YouTube. If you got a question, comment, or want to see a future guest on the show, be sure to email us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Shout out to our show supporters, Yak Gadget. You can check out all the fine kayak accessories at yakgadget.com. Pelican Professional. For all your cases, coolers, and lighting needs, go to pelican.com. Rocktown Adventures, your Midwest premier paddle sports destination. Go to rocktownadventures.com. Eastport Marina, the beautiful destination on Dale Hollow Lake. If you're looking for lodging, kayaks, kayak accessories, or anything fishing related on the beautiful Dale Hollow Lake, go to eastport.info. And Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and fill your tackle boxes